In the wrestling world, the people are represented by two separate but unequally important groups. The wrestlers and bookers, who literally do all the hard work, and the fans, who endlessly nitpick and overanalyze everything they do. These are their stories.
Hey! It's Warhorse, and you need to shut your mouth, open your eyes, and clean out your ears, because it's time to listen to the Raw and Order podcast. That's right, they're bringing you the best in all that meaty podcasty goodness in one, what is it, an hour? Two? Who cares? Who gives a shit? You need to listen to it right now, or else Warhorse is gonna, roll your ass!
Welcome to another episode of Raw and Order, the Wrestling Booking Unit, the only wrestling podcast on the planet that goes live every week, Sunday night at precisely 10:30, except for most of the times because we get talking and then we're late. I am your host, Detective Mark Smarks, and I'm joined, as always, by my partner in crime fighting, District Attorney Vincent Kayfabe. What's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, sorry, I was out. I thought you were out too.
Nope.
Get it? You out, and I'm out too. Sorry. Yes. Trying to do something a little fun.
I'm out. And I'm out too. We'll talk a lot, I'm sure, later about that. We got a lot to talk about this week. A lot more wrestling than normally. 2 hours more, to be precise.
Without a pay-per-view.
But 2 hours more wrestling, to be precise.
And more storyline development in some areas.
Yes.
Areas.
But so we'll kind of get into it. No JLB. He's still, I don't know, doing stuff. He'll be back sometime, maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. But we'll get straight into it. Before we do, though, I want to remind people, if you like this, you enjoy it, make sure to subscribe to us or follow us on Twitch. Subscribe to us if you got Amazon Prime. You can do it for free. Otherwise, it's just $5. Get you ad-free viewing, extra emotes that you can use in the chat, and our undying love. At least undying until if you stop subscribing, and then it dies. Yeah.
It's unconditional so long as you subscribe.
Yes. As long as you meet this condition. But we'll get straight into it. Raw, of course, is on the downhill towards Money in the Bank. We got Money in the Bank coming up this coming weekend, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So they're getting everything set up for it. Just trying to think here. We had them setting up the Cody Rhodes, Dominic Mysterio more. I had a thought that struck my brain that made me unhappy. What if all of this setting up Dominic versus Cody is really just a setup for
Brock interference?
Maybe, but I was really, what my worry is, I'm going to say worry. Is this really just a setup for Brandy Rhodes to make her return to the ring?
No, absolutely not. No.
No, you do not want it to be.
No, it shouldn't be. Here's the deal. Dom doesn't put on 10, 12-minute matches because Dom's not a good wrestler. Dom's an entertaining personality now. He wasn't initially. We had to get sick and tired of him for them to be able to use this entertaining personality, which we didn't know existed. We know that Brandy is neither an entertaining personality nor a good wrestler. That said, I did give What's Her Bucket a shot to have become a better wrestler, but again, was at least an entertaining personality. Irritatingly entertaining, but an entertaining personality. Ava, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Ava Marie, is that what her name was?
Eva Marie, yeah. I get what you're saying, but counterpoint, WWE, additional
That's the whole...
yeah,
Okay.
additional counterpoint, Cody Rhodes and Brandy Rhodes.
If she wasn't part of the contract to begin with, I don't think she's part of the contract now.
I think she was.
But she had a baby.
But she had a baby.
Mama had a baby
and had just had a baby, we should say. When Cody came over was right after the birth of Liberty Bell. I like Cody a whole lot, but
Liberty Bell Rhodes. Rhodes. There's probably a name like that in Pennsylvania somewhere. Liberty Bell Road. South. Liberty Bell Road South.
Yes. But it's... I just, like you said, I don't think any of us want it to be...
I want to be pleasantly surprised if it's the case. So I was optimistic about Eva Marie. I was pessimistic about Dominic. I was wrong on both of those. I was optimistic about Brock, and Brock without a title has been everything we wanted him to be. I was optimistic about Braun, and I like a mid-card Braun still running around smashing people. It still works. I was optimistic about Gunther. That still works. The problem is, bad wrestlers I've been optimistic about have turned out bad, and bad wrestlers I've been pessimistic about have turned out good. So I should continue to be pessimistic about Brandy because maybe that'll hold.
I mean, more power to you, man. I just because here's the deal: is the whole gimmick with Dominic now is that Rhea helps him win.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
That he's nothing without Rhea. And
I don't understand him. I seriously don't understand Cody challenging him.
I don't think it helps anyone.
No.
It doesn't make Cody look better if he wins versus Dom.
It doesn't make Dom look better if he loses versus Dom.
Yeah, it doesn't make him look better if he loses. It doesn't make Dom look better, especially winning with cheating, which is what he would do.
It also puts Cody not in the Money in the Bank match.
Mm-hmm. Which puts a damper on the he's going to win Money in the Bank so that he can eventually cash in concept.
I mean, here's the truth. Now we do have the Money in the Bank set. Who's your guy? Is it LA Knight? Is it Damian Priest? Those are really the only two.
Those are the two that that I would say make any sense out of the entrance this year. Taking place at London, England. Because right now, Ricochet, possibly Shinsuke, because they are building him back up. But
maybe. I mean, I think you jumped the shark with him already.
Yeah. Here's the deal. Insiders are saying LA Knight or Damian Priest. There's a chance.
I'd love to see it be Santos Escobar. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, the thing is, they haven't built him enough to be
correct
it right now.
But he does have a faction behind him, which helps.
There are reports that this might be Butch's chance to return to more the Pete Dunne character. Maybe still keep the name Butch, but go back to the character that was the bruiserweight character that he had. But I don't think he does that by winning. So
No.
Um,
Ricochet's a maybe, but he's never a heel.
if
He's
I
too much
were
of a natural babyface.
so if I were right now to put money on it, I'd put money on LA Knight, and then I'd have a side bet that Damian Priest. You know what I mean? Those are the two. But I think LA Knight has the slight edge. The only storyline right now for Damian Priest winning would be if Finn Balor wins the World Heavyweight Championship.
Which is a possibility.
I don't think they're going to do it yet. Unless they throw a curveball in at us.
I mean, having Damian Priest cash in on Finn Balor in that match, boy, that's a slinging sideshow.
Yeah, he wins the Money in the Bank, and then later on in the night, Finn Balor wins and immediately gets cashed in on by his own stablemate.
Yeah,
that's something.
That's the thing.
The women's match is almost as hard to because here's the deal.
I feel like
obviously the best contender is Becky Lynch, right?
Yeah, you got Becky, Bayley, Shotzi, Becky, Bayley, Io are all former champions.
Mm-hmm.
If Zoe Stark beats Raquel, because Bayley's going to beat Shotzi, right?
Right now, what I'm...
Are you guessing that Io cost Bayley her match? Her shot?
Well, so here's what... I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry, and and it has Zelina Vega versus Becky Lynch versus Zoe Stark versus Bayley, or
Shotzi. Because they just put it on the line.
Mm-hmm. Io Sky versus Raquel Rodriguez or Trish Stratus. So here's the storyline that I see. Zoe's in one way or another. It's whether it's Bayley or Shotzi that gets in there. Storyline wise, it makes more sense to have Bayley and Io Sky in there together, because then you can play this whole, are they going to team up and then at the end, is Io going to help Bayley win, or is
the same goes with Zoe and Trish.
Same goes with Zoe and Trish. With the added, are they going to team up specifically against their enemy Becky Lynch right now?
Correct. Which does open a door for potentially Zelina Vega to sneak it when Bayley and Io turn on each other.
That's why I say, even though Becky is the front runner in terms of like any other time, the fact that she is likely going against Zoe Starks and probably Trish Stratus, I could see them going with Raquel Rodriguez instead of Trish, just because Trish doesn't have a history of ladder matches, and she's Becky also
getting that dirty shot in later, which means Trish can come in and cost Becky the chance.
Yeah. So, but one way or another, I think Zoe and Trish would team up with Becky.
The only faction that has somebody in both of them is LWO. LWO is loaded with heels. One face.
Yes. They're loaded with heels and one face, but they operate as a face unit.
Correct. Because they're led by that face.
Mm-hmm.
They're led by that
face. They're also
LWO go heel and Zelina and Santos be the people with the...
I don't think so.
I think you have a year to build Santos into being a heel and a contender.
Here's the deal. I think they understand right now there's the nostalgia for the LWO because of the Eddie Guerrero connection, because Rey Mysterio was the one who brought it back to support him. All of this stuff, I don't think they're going heel with the LWO anytime soon.
Okay, fair enough.
So at that point, it's, do we have face winners from it? I don't think Santos is ready to win. I don't think they're high enough on Santos to win. Selena could possibly win. But what I was saying is, like I said, Becky Lynch is the smart money most of the time, except I think she gets canceled out by Zoe and Trish.
Yes.
Right. Bailey and Io, I think that's the storyline. And
I think the collapse of Bailey and Io with Io winning is the
with
real
Io winning
storyline.
is, I think, the storyline. So I'm gonna go with Io winning.
In an active heel group. Taking the face role of the active heel group, but still being a heel.
I think it might even be time for Io to. She's been showing such frustration with Damage Control. The fact that Damage Control right now is just her and Bailey because Dakota Kai's out injured. I think this is their chance. Turn Io face. Have her win as a face. LA Knight wins. He's effectively a heel.
Yeah.
You know. So
same with Damian Priest.
Right? So there's going to be I think likely a heel winner of that one. You can have a face winner, especially with Rhea Ripley being the women's champion. You want a potential face to offset her. Of course, the Money in the Bank is not limited to brand, so Io could decide to go challenge on SmackDown.
Right.
Same with LA Knight or Damian Priest if they win. So, anyways,
I think Seth comes out of that with a win with Damian Priest, thinking he's going to pin Finn, and Seth hitting the stomp on Priest and getting the win. And fucking Finn. That's what I think actually happens there.
I don't know. See, here's...
we do need a Money in the Bank cash in that is a win, though.
Well,
badly. That's... all the time.
That's where...
times where Money in the Bank does not win, the person who holds the contract does not win should be extremely, extremely rare. And I mean very rare. Are you looking at Money in the Bank cash-ins over the last, 10 years?
Yeah, because the big thing is they've done with the women the same night cash-in often. Because Alexa cashed in with the second women's Money in the Bank. Bailey cashed in with the third, same night. Liv Morgan cashed in same night last year. But for men, the last time the men cashed in same night was Dean Ambrose back in 2016.
Who's that?
Some dude used to be with the Shield. They let him go, and he hasn't been seen since. Kane did it back in 2010. And those were the only time with the men that they had a same night cash in. With the men, they've always been more likely to let them hold it for longer than the women. And I would like to see them have whoever's the women's one, if it's Io. I would like to see her hold on to it for a few months at least. I've said before, I really would love the storyline of a champion who get a Money in the Bank holder who gets told, "Hey, Money in the Bank is this coming weekend, and if you don't cash in before then, you lose the briefcase. It's only good for 1 year." What do you mean only good for 1 year? Yeah, the contract's only good for 1 year, so you've got to cash in this week. Oh, crap. You know what I mean?
This isn't the year to do that. Otis was the year to do that.
Otis was, but I mean, they could have done it any year. Big E had the champion, had the Money in the Bank.
Yeah, if they said you have to do it this week, and then Big E just wouldn't want it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Biggie could do it. The Miz could have done it. Of course, the Miz, that storyline was he he got it off of Otis, right? He didn't
Yeah.
actually win the Money in the Bank,
One of them.
but
He
still,
actually
yeah,
won
the
it
most
once.
recent one, I should say. But that still could have been a storyline because he got it off of him months prior, and you could even tell the storyline that he's like, I thought I had a year from when I got it, and they're like, no, it was a year from Money in the Bank.
You ran out, man.
Yeah,
And
well,
that was
even
better if he did run out. For
yeah,
the Miz.
him actually running out would be fun, but even just a crap. Well, now I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to challenge him, right? You know, Roman's in the ring delivering a promo, and Miz just walks out and says, "Give me my match right now."
But then Roman spears him and he loses.
Yeah, and then he gets stomped.
But he actually won with his cash in.
Yes, he did. He beat Drew McIntyre
With the help of Bobby Lashley.
mm-hmm.
After a match with somebody else. Braun or something.
After the Elimination Chamber match that had AJ Styles, Randy Orton, Sheamus, Jeff Hardy, Kofi Kingston in it. So,
You know, for a guy you pretty much wanted to take the title off of, making him look indestructible, you didn't put it back on him very easily, did you?
Yeah. That was a good way to make him look indestructible, but anyways, they had Matt Riddle versus Damian Priest on Raw. The big thing on Raw was setting up this whole thing with backstage. Every time they would talk to the Judgment Day, Finn Balor was like kind of off in his own world. And it's because later he would come out and deliver a really good promo. I felt bad for him, though, because he was delivering what I thought was going to be a really good promo overall, but the crowd was too busy singing along with Seth Rollins' music that he couldn't get, like, flow going.
His delivery was fantastic on that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that people are like, well, he sounded like a whiny bitch. That's exactly the character he was playing right then.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not that. Or he'd have had that breakdown long before now.
Yeah. The thing is, his character is, I think they're trying to go back to more his New Japan character. The real rock and roller.
Prince Devitt.
Yes. But anyways, Ricochet versus Bronson Reed ended in a DQ when Nakamura came in. Raquel Rodriguez versus Shayna Baszler. Did we really think it was going to end any other way? Chad Gable versus Eric was a lot more fun than it has any right to be.
I love the way you put it. More fun than it has any right to be. Absolutely. It was everything that Chad Gable and Otis and Maxine Dupree, I almost forgot what her name was right now, are doing is good comedy segments, good wrestling, good.
Yes. Thank you.
Good thank yous. I knew I could do it. I knew I could teach her. Like she does, hits him with the arm drag takedown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew I could teach you. It was just so good. Everything they do. I really thought adding Maxine Dupree to the mix meant that we were getting Massey and Mansoor. That actually has Vince, the smell of Vince, because Otis is being managed by a model all over it, and still pretty good.
Yeah. But but yeah, no, it's fun. I just feel bad for Masay and Mansoor, because not that either of them are like my favorite wrestlers of all time or anything. But they'd put in a lot of work on the Maximum Male models.
Yeah.
And they literally, like,
one of them can't return to his home country because of it.
They
I'm just playing. He can.
But they were like, they went all in on it, I guess is what I'm saying. You know,
Yeah.
This was a character that just could have been a joke character for either of them. And instead, they both treated it like real characters. And so,
yeah,
because apparently that's just fucking done. Like, they're not gonna mention it or anything. They're just gonna be like, yeah, we're done with them. Sami Zayn versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens versus Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser again. Because
I think that was as good as it should have been.
Yes.
Better.
Always fun.
That one was not better than it should have been because it was always good. So
yeah. But moving on, SmackDown. SmackDown's where the real stuff for WWE happened.
Absolutely. I love the tag stuff.
Yep. They had a tag team gauntlet match that was won by Pretty Deadly. Very importantly,
Sheamus was a fucking machine in that match.
They later claimed to have beaten four other teams, you know, to do it. But they were the last team to come in. And the team that they beat had already beaten four other teams, you know. So
it opened up with Sheamus and Ridge Holland.
Sheamus and Ridge Holland versus Street Profits.
Which made you think one of those two teams could easily run the gamut. You know, it also, I mean, would they give those two 10 minutes? 8 minutes? It was a pretty decent amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
After that, they were replaced by... the Street Profits lost because of a brogue kick out of nowhere to Dawkins. And then next in was what?
OC.
Oh, that's right, OC. Mm-hmm. And that was a surprise brogue kick out of nowhere. I mean, literally out of nowhere. Sheamus was down. Carl Anderson climbs the rope to celebrate like a healed buffoon does.
Mm-hmm.
Turns around and Sheamus is back up and brogue kicks him. And 1, 2, 3. Then Top Dollar gets brogue kicked as he's rolling into the ring because Sheamus is tired, man. Yeah. And Ridge Holland gets the roll up. I don't know why that changed. Like why suddenly was Ridge Holland the legal competitor?
I don't
Maybe
know.
It automatically changes on the next match. But anyway, Ridge Holland gets the roll up on Top Dollar. And then they put on probably another 5-minute match or so against the Pretty Deadly. And they tag in after Sheamus hits a Celtic Cross on Kit Wilson. And the blonde one, I can't remember his name. Tagged in. Tagged himself in as Kit Wilson was taking that. And leg dropped right on top of him. That was a great match. Like, for a gauntlet and for Pretty Deadly winning, it was a good match. But better was the promo right after it.
Yes. I really enjoyed the promo after it.
Oh, my God. It was so good.
Like, you want to get angry? Normally, this is where I stop you.
You got nothing to say about this? Well, you've been telling me to keep my cool, and so I've been working on it. No.
No, this is time to get angry.
Usually this is where you're like, I just want to go kick their asses. Let's still do it then. What? Really? Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this.
My son looked at me and said, "Why are they wearing shirts that don't cover their nipples or stomachs or anything?"
Yeah, the Pretty Deadly shirts are not good at being shirts.
No, not at all.
But and then Zelina Vega versus Io Sky. Just one of those matches where like both of these women are in Money in the Bank.
And Io took a loss to further build the Bayley Io feud.
A loss of importantly based on
Bayley's
her
distractions.
Yeah.
Based on really Io being distracted. Because the first distraction she kicked out of. Then she turned around and she's like, "Bayley, you gotta leave me alone." And kept talking to her, and I'm like, "What? You should." Io, you just were over there messing with her.
Yeah.
Because the first time, when she had the roll up on Zelina, the referee wasn't in position. And the second time, she went over and was talking to her and got rolled up. That was a good match, too.
Then we had the Grayson Waller effect with.
I hated this segment. I hated this whole fucking segment.
Well, you know how I feel about talk shows on my WWE TV.
I hate it. I don't understand why it just isn't a triple threat match.
I don't understand why they keep giving people talk shows on my wrestling TV.
It was poorly spoken by Grayson Waller. I mean, the first Grayson Waller effect was okay. This one was just garbage. It was just really bad. I need Johnny Gargano to go kick his ass for attacking him at his house. Oh, that's right. What happens on NXT stays on NXT.
I don't know. I mean, obviously they're reforming the way, apparently.
Because why wouldn't you?
This time with
no Austin Theory.
No Austin Theory, but apparently, reportedly, with Ciampa as a member.
So they're going to do DIY, but Vince isn't going to understand what DIY is. So he's going to be like, "Oh, okay, so they're home improvement guys, okay."
Pretty much. But I just don't like. I don't like Grayson Waller. Not that I don't like Grayson Waller. I guess I need to rephrase that. I don't like chat shows. I don't like talk shows. I think they're a totally played out concept on wrestling. And they're rarely entertaining and rarely good about setting up things. I don't like Miz TV. I didn't like A Moment of Bliss anymore. I don't want them to give 2.0 on AEW. I'm done with them. I think they're a played out concept.
A Moment of Bliss was okay when it was just the coffee shop up at the top.
It was okay.
But she has to be the mean girl. And again, it was
okay when it wasn't a talk show, when it was just her being a bitch. Right?
That's true.
But then they tried to turn it into a talk show. And then it went downhill. Anyways.
There has been a couple of times where it has worked. Edge and Christian, it worked.
Yep, but again, that was a long time ago, and that's why I say I think this concept's played out. I think they need to come up with a new concept. If you want to do it right, understand that we live in the era of podcasts, not talk shows, right? talk shows are played out culturally. James Corden decided he was going to retire from the Late Late Show, a show that has been on for decades.
And go do his own podcast. Skit show, isn't it? This is a skit show.
I don't honestly know.
He could just do carpool karaoke as a show, and he'd be fine.
He would probably be fine. Here's the I think one of the things that he's kind of said is he's talking about just returning to Britain. He's kind of fallen out of popularity in America. There are a lot of people who are tired of him because kind of like Ellen, it started to come to public eye that he's not really all that nice of a person in real life.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the stories are starting to come out just about how he's kind of a dick. He thinks he's super cool and he's not. But
he's also British, so he should be kind of a dick.
But my point is in fact, the last show was end of April, so it's done now. But my point is, when he decided he was gonna step down as the host of the Late Late Show,
they just ended the Late Late Show.
They just said we're just gonna end it. It premiered in 1995, right? It was almost 30 years old. It had 4 previous hosts.
It's impressive.
Yeah. It had 4 previous hosts, right? Started off with Tom Snyder. My favorite, he hosted it for 5 years, was Craig Kilborn.
Craig Kilborn was fantastic.
Then it was Craig Ferguson, and Craig Ferguson hosted it for 9 years.
No, I'm sorry. That's who I was thinking of, was Craig Ferguson.
Yeah. Craig Kilborn was my favorite. Craig Kilborn was the original host of The Daily Show, too.
I don't remember Craig Kilborn. I'm trying to remember. But
anyways, I loved Craig Kilborn. He was kind of smarmy, and I liked that. I don't know. Anyways, but that's my point. Is that they're like, instead of replacing him, we'll just end the show entirely and bring back, and this is true, everyone, a failed Comedy Central late night improv comedy show, improv comedy game show sort of a thing. And but not bring back the host of said improv comedy game show. Instead, make a whole new host for it.
At that hour, you don't even really need to do a show. They could just do a best of TikTok. I mean, there's a whole channel dedicated to that.
Yeah. The old one, I actually really liked At Midnight when it was on Comedy Central, because it was hosted by Chris Hardwick, and it was kind of a panel game show where they would bring on comedians to play. So it was all improv comedy.
Was this one more designed to be kind of like
yeah, I gotta
what's his name's the Nick Cannon's show?
No. It's set up like a game show.
Okay. So kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, only better.
It also
less generic.
It also is different than Whose Line Is It. Again, it's set up like a game show. You have a host, and then you've got 3 contestants, I believe. And there were reoccurring games, right? Where like audio quiz, where the panelists have to try to identify the source of a sound. And so they give a sound, and then someone would buzz in and give an answer, and it was usually less about answering it correctly and more about saying something funny, right?
Okay, gotcha.
The one way that it is kind of like Whose Line Is Anyways is the points don't matter. So much so that the host would not even often say how many points. He would just say points. There's one where the panelists attempt to guess the buy it now price of strange items on eBay. There was one called Rich Cat, Poor Cat. The panelists had to decide whether it was a rich cat or a cat being humiliated by its owner on the internet. There was one Tumble Reality. The panelists must figure out which bizarre Tumblr blog title is real. Juggle OkCupid. The panelists must figure out which bizarre OkCupid dating profile is the description of a juggalo. Anyways,
That's fun.
But I do have to correct myself. I said it was a failed show. It lasted over 4 years and had 600 episodes.
Wow.
So I guess it can't be considered failed if it had 600 episodes.
In 4 years?
Yeah. Well,
shit,
because
that's every other night.
Yeah, because it was a late night show, right? Monday through Thursday from August 13th, 2013 to August 4th, 2017.
Okay.
October 21st, 2013 to August 4th, 2017. So almost 4 years, I guess. But yeah.
You could do an evening at the Improvs. You could do, I mean, that late at night, just fucking throw reruns on if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Save yourself some money. You don't have to do anything original then.
Yeah. But so anyways, they announced that that's going to go in there. And well, I don't think they've announced who's going to host it now. Yeah. Anyways, so I'm just done with chat shows. Back to wrestling.
Yeah.
AJ Styles and Mia Yim versus Karrion Kross and Charlotte. And I'm gonna say this right now. It's credited as Michin Mia Yim, but until they get their fucking act together and decide where the Michin goes in her name, I'm just gonna call her Mia Yim again. Because sometimes it's Mia Michin Yim, and sometimes it's Mia Yim Michin, and sometimes it's Micha Mia Yin, and then sometimes they just credit her as Michin. Let's make up your fucking mind.
Also, didn't have her own music.
Mm-hmm.
Came out to AJ Styles music. Does it feel like you have the face portion of OC and the heel portion of OC?
Well, yeah. Ever since they returned, I don't feel like Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows fit in with AJ Styles OC. Because like you say, they're obviously
AJ needs to be a heel.
Yeah, they're obviously heel, but he's playing it face. So if I were in charge of WWE, which, we already know I'm not, I would have split them up in the draft and put them on Raw. And then this whole Finn Balor Judgment Day thing would have been a chance for him to split off from Judgment Day and reform Balor Club.
That would work.
As a heel.
Those two need a heel leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they're not likable. It's just that they're better as heels.
It's just that I kind of don't like them. But there was an interesting moment in this, though, because Karrion Kross and Scarlett. This was Scarlett's first actual match as part of the main roster, and maybe even as part of NXT. I'm gonna have to look to be certain. Um, uh, because she wrestled a lot in Impact before she came over, but oh nope, it was her second match. She had one back in January against Emma and Madcap Moss, Karrion Kross and Scarlett. So it was her
There's always
second
been
match.
tags,
But they've been tagged. Prior to that, her last match on a televised something, and I'm using televised really loose here, was MLW Fusion back in June of 2022 before they came to NXT. And before that would have been back when she was in Impact back in 2019. But there was a moment in it. This is what I wanted to get to. She gets up in the ring and she tries to distract AJ Styles with her feminine wiles. And AJ pulls off his glove and points to the ring on his finger and says, "I'm fucking married."
says, "I'm married, bitch."
Married bitch. That's what it was. But that's fine because she wasn't really trying to seduce him, of course.
She was setting him up so Karrion can do what Karrion does.
She was just being a distraction,
which I really enjoy. Because Karrion's on kind of a streak right now. I would say the one thing that he needs is he needs to go back to the shaved head. I don't know why that makes him look more vicious, but it does. And maybe his hair needs to get longer or one of the two. Where it's at right now makes him look like he's trying to be a badass. Just trying to be a badass.
Santos Escobar versus LA Knight was just another, like I said before, these people are in Money in the Bank, so we're going to put them against each other, and it's not going to make a difference, really. But the thing everyone's talking about, the thing to talk about from SmackDown, more than anything else that happened, was the final segment, Jey Uso will fall in line segment with Roman Reigns. Where Roman was there to say, Paul Heyman was right. We want you to be the next leader. But he was wrong that we didn't just start
grooming you.
We've been grooming you the whole time.
I thought the funny part was ask who the person who didn't think you should be the leader is.
And it was really, really great moment. Where, sorry, I'm sweating like a pig. I forgot to mention to you guys, the AC is off in my house, so if I look like a mess or it's noisy, it's because I have to have a fan over here and the window open just to keep myself from sweating into.
And my noise is because cars are driving by.
But so yeah, the whole moment after, Roman says, "We always believed in you, but Jimmy didn't," effectively. And Jay turns around to Jimmy, "Are you right? Is that true?" And then does this whole, thing about, you were always the older brother. You were always the one who did everything first. All this stuff. And just for once, I wanted to be. So you know what, Jay? And you know, Jimmy, you out.
So am I.
And I'm out too. And then he super kicks Roman. And then
They double super kick Solo.
Well, Solo looks a little confused at first and goes to attack them, and they duck and then double super kick him, and then Roman tries to get up, and they double super kick him before leaving. It was really, really well done. But that does set up Money in the Bank will feature
Bloodline Civil War.
Bloodline Civil War match.
I do wish that I wish that Jimmy would have had the opportunity to say, "You were already the leader of the Bloodline for me."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish. Yeah, there were some things that
go back to the beginnings of the Bloodline. The Roman with Heyman had already been happening. And at the beginnings of the Bloodline was Roman beating Jay to make him be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jay convinced Jimmy to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. But here's what I wish would happen. I wish they didn't have the tag team match at Money in the Bank at all, right?
Okay. It's a chance for Solo to turn, though.
It is a chance for Solo. I don't think it's going to happen. What I think needs to happen before Solo turns, I think the Usos need to become the Bloodline killer, or more specifically, the championship killer. That they need to now, as a tag team, be dedicated
to Roman that title,
costing Roman that title, right? And so I think instead of having this tag match, they have Roman disappear for a bit, and then he comes back and he has to have a match. But this is a
contractually obligated match.
Well, this is what do they call it on AEW? The they don't call it a number one contenders match. Anyways, a number one contenders match, or a beat me and then you get your shot match, right? So let's just say, to throw a name out, let's say it's Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre comes and says, I want to challenge you for that undisputed championship. And Roman says, no. And then
I've already beat you.
I've already beat you. But then Adam Pearce comes out and says, listen, Roman, you don't defend that often enough. So we're going to have a championship challenge match where if Drew McIntyre can beat you on SmackDown this week in July, then he gets a shot at the next pay-per-view. And then during that match, the Usos come out and do the opposite of what they've been doing. Instead of coming out to help Roman win, they come out to cost him it. And I would like to see that be a long-standing thing where, Solo's having a match. They come out to cost him the match. And they basically say, listen, for a long time, for years, it was you side with Roman or you get your ass kicked. Now it's you side against Roman or you get your ass kicked. You know what I mean? Now the tables have turned. He's no longer the head of the table, and we're going to show you. And if you stick with him, you're going to feel pain.
Well, and the other thing they can do with that is, Roman, you don't have to have a match if you can beat that guy. You don't have to defend your title. Mm-hmm. But then the Usos come out and get Roman DQ'd by attacking that guy. Oh, guess you got to have your match, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I think that works too.
But like I say, just like you side with him, you're siding against us. And you side against us, then we're going to cost you everything. That's what I would like to have seen a little bit more of from the Usos before they finally had a match against each other
Sure. I mean, that could be a last man standing tag match. Elimination tag. You know. That'd be kind of cool. Last man standing elimination tag.
So I used to jokingly, just as a total off the subject, if you see me looking down and fiddling, I used to jokingly say that my toxic trait was thinking about every 7 years or so, my brain would say, I think you can teach yourself how to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Still
You're nerdy
struggling.
enough. You should be able to do it, right? And so I'd buy a Rubik's Cube and I'd fiddle with it for a month or two, and I'd never be able to get it through my thick skull how to do it. And then I'd throw it in a box or throw it away, and then 7 years later do it all again. Unfortunately, it's not my toxic trait anymore because I managed to actually fucking do it this time.
Ooh.
So I can now consistently solve it. Like, it's not a fluke, accidental solve it. I can do it now. So if you ever think that you're, oh man, I'm 30 years old, it's too late for me to learn something. 45 years old and I taught myself how to do a Rubik's Cube. Anything is possible.
Can you do it again?
Yeah, I can consistently solve it.
Well, right on. Good for you.
I'll spend the next 10 minutes or so on the podcast just mixing it up off screen. I'll show it to you all mixed. Anyways, but that was SmackDown. It was really good. The
Great end.
ending was phenomenal. This is why I always say it's so frustrating when WWE is bad, because they have.
By the way, we're
ability.
going to start it back at 59. We had a reduction, no swearing.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's 10 minutes, right? So
10
an hour
minutes.
9.
Yeah.
So thanks for making it so we can't say naughty words.
Yeah.
We're learning to do that around our children, to not swear.
You may be learning to do that.
That's horse manure.
But this is why I say it's so frustrating when WWE is bad, is because they show us that they are capable of putting on really, really good shows.
Yes.
Really phenomenal shows. And then sometimes they just pee down their leg. So I'm hoping that this is, I mean, the Bloodline storyline as a whole has been a highlight of the last
3 years.
Yeah, few years for WWE. But that's not to say they haven't had some real poop storms during that time.
Oh.
You know?
They absolutely have.
But moving on to AEW. Dynamite. Dynamite was a big show because it was all about let's set up the pieces. We've got Forbidden Door coming up in a week. We've got to kind of do a big thing. We also have a big week because it's coming up later in the week, the first episode of Collision on TNT, TBS, TNT. I think one of the Turners.
Television.
The television. So the show, this actually surprised me that they started off the show with this. The big match going into the week was Adam Cole versus MJF in a this is what AEW calls it, a World Championship Eliminator match. If you win, you get a shot at the World Championship. If you do not win, then MJF doesn't have to give you a chance.
Ever.
There are still ways, like,
The chip or something like that.
the chip or winning a number one contenders battle royal or something like that. But this was importantly the first in a long time that ended in a time limit draw. We haven't seen that in quite a while from AEW. And so
Nice of them to remind us that they do that.
Yeah. Well, and because they hadn't done it in a while, it had fallen far enough from our brains that I didn't think it was an option. Like, my brain didn't think that was going to happen. And they did it in the way that's the best way to do it. Adam Cole had MJF pinned in the ring. 1, 2,
buzz.
1 second longer, and he would have gotten the win. I thought it was a good way to do it. It allowed Adam Cole to look shocked. It allowed Adam Cole to plead for them to just give 5 more minutes, and then MJF be the chicken heel, be like, nope, not gonna do it.
It also allowed to leave a question mark there, like, Adam Cole, can you contend for the title? No.
There were some great moments. They did a lot of MJF working Adam Cole's arm to set him up for an armbar, which has been one of his big finishing submissions. They had the moment to sort of do the Eddie Guerrero, but Adam Cole was smart enough to not fall for it, sort of a thing. But anyways, Sammy Guevara came out and gave a promo talking about how life has changed for him. In case you didn't see, they did this is what he said on the show. I'm not saying it to you specifically, but they did a gender reveal for the baby that Ty's having with Sammy, and it's going to be a little girl. So now more than ever, I need to be the champion and support my my upcoming little one. And this is a moment that AEW did something that shows me that they not only do they listen to their fans, they pay attention to what's being talked about on social media, and they adapt accordingly. Earlier in the week, I think it was even the week before, someone tweeted at Chris Jericho, I just noticed that in all of their time together in WCW and then later in WWF or WWE, Sting and Chris Jericho never had a match against each other. Do you think this is going to be something that happens in AEW? And Chris Jericho responded, not happening, not interested. Well, during this segment, so while he's out there doing that, then Darby Allin comes out and says, you're talking about being a better man and all this stuff, but you've always allied yourself with, bad men like Chris Jericho and allowed the bad guys to run it. You need to be a bigger man. You need to show that you can be the thing rather than just a crony for Chris Jericho. And then Chris Jericho came out to the ring with a bat and confronted Guevara, saying, hey, you never called for my help. if you would have called for my help, you might have won that ladder match, or that fatal 4-way match for the AEW World Championship. And Sammy Guevara said back, well, it goes both ways. If you would have called on me, you might have beaten Adam Cole. But then Chris Jericho brings up, he's like, well, how about you show me whose side you're still on? Show me. How about next week you and I take on Darby Allin in a handicap match since he's alone? And Darby goes, well, the thing is, I'm not exactly alone. And Sting's music hits. And Sting comes out and they have a face-off, Sting and Chris Jericho in the ring. Which now will likely lead to probably a tag team match. I don't think we're ever going to get to see a solo Chris Jericho versus Sting match. I don't think Sting has a solo match in him at 63
How much did
years
that
old.
hurt you to say?
It's tough. It's getting older sucks, and it sucks partially because you get to see your heroes get older too. But the other side of it is I'm getting to see a hero get older because some of my other heroes did not get older.
No, they didn't.
But it still will likely happen. You then had a trios match: Darby Allin, Sting, and Orange Cassidy versus Keith Lee and Mogul Embassy. Excuse me. Darby Allin, Sting, Orange Cassidy, and Keith Lee versus Mogul Embassy. I read it wrong. So it was actually a 4-way match, 4-on-4 match. And Darby Allin, Sting, Orange Cassidy, and Keith Lee got the win. Orange Cassidy got beat up a bunch during it, but was able to get the victory. And it did set up a moment later on in the night it's one of my favorite things with Orange Cassidy. When someone talks smack to him backstage about something, and he's just like, okay, well, how about next week we just fight for it? And then he walks away. You know what I mean?
Very, very similar to what we have from Kevin Owens right now.
Mm-hmm. It just the opposite in terms of tone.
Yes.
Because he doesn't get angry. He's just like, how about this?
Why don't we just fight?
You know? Because in this one, it was he was being interviewed backstage, and then Zack Sabre Jr. came up and said, you're the international champion. I'm the New Japan television champion. And then Daniel Garcia came up and started talking smack, and then said, hey, Orange, your boy Shibata has that Ring of Honor Pure Championship. I think I want that back now. And then Orange Cassidy was like, well, Shibata's not here this week, but he'll be here next week. So how about the two of us fight the two of you? Sound good? And then he turns and walks away. And I just like how he's like, you're not intimidating me. Let's just fight about it, TNT Championship, Wardlow versus Jake Hager. Was surprising that they gave Jake Hager as little offense as they did. Like, this wasn't quite a squash match,
but a former world champion, and that might just be Jake Hager going, you know what, I'm okay.
Yeah. So backstage, they announced that MJF will face Hiroshi Tanahashi at Forbidden Door, and MJF said, nope, I'm not doing that. And said,
which is exactly what any of us would say.
Yeah. And he said, just remind Tony that I've no-showed your shows before. I will not be facing the Ace. We also earlier in the night had a package. I forgot to mention this, where world champion, New Japan world champion, IWGP world champion, and I'm totally blanking on his name. Issued an open challenge. God, what was his name? What's his name? I can't remember. I'll remember it in a bit when I stop thinking about it. Open challenge. He said whoever wants to fight me at Forbidden Door for the IWGP championship, they can do it. And later on in the night, Jungle Boy said he is answering that open challenge. So we're gonna have Jungle Boy versus I'm totally blanking on his name. At Forbidden Door. I should Google it, but
I'm doing it for you, bud.
You then had the Sky Blue versus Tony Storm for the AW Women's Championship. Did any of us really think Sky Blue was going to win? I don't think so.
She dropped the straps, though.
No, that's Willow Nightingale on Collision.
That's right. Sorry. Yep.
And
Kota Ibushi?
Nope, Kota Ibushi's not with with New Japan.
Oh no,
anymore.
he unified it with somebody else.
He unified it a while ago, and then
Junichiro Tenryu? Is that who it is right now? No, that's the longest running. That's the lowest running. Unified with the World Heavyweight Championship right here. Sonata,
that's it. Who's kind of one of their big names there, and so he's like, "Hey, I challenge whoever wants to," and so Jungle Boy's gonna do it. And then what ended up being the main event of the night. Which it just was weird to me that the Adam Cole versus MJF match was the first match of the night, because I felt like that should be closer to the main. But the main event was the Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club, because this fight ain't over. And this was one of those endings that was ludicrous in its complexity, right? So the Elite were able to beat Blackpool Combat Club, but afterwards Blackpool Combat Club started beating up on the Elite, right? Then Eddie Kingston's music hit. Eddie Kingston's back from injury. He came out to pull Claudio Castagnoli off of them. But then, so it looked like he was on the side of the Elite. But then Moxley got in the ring and he stopped people from attacking Moxley because, he's good friends with John Moxley. Then Takeshita showed up and cold clocked Kingston out, which gave Blackpool Combat Club the upper hand again. Then Kenny Omega's music hit, and he came out to attack Takeshita. Then he was getting ready to do a dive to the outside, and out of nowhere, Will Ospreay showed up and hit him with the hidden blade from behind. So it was just like the last 5 minutes was just,
who's gonna fight who? It's
Door. Somebody's back. Another person's back. Who's this guy? What's going on here? It was fun, but it was a little much, I think.
You really don't know who's facing whom out of that setup.
Yes.
And that's
Well,
unfortunate. I mean,
we already know they previously announced that Ospreay is going against Kenny Omega at Forbidden Door.
Correct. But in terms of well, now there's Kota Ibushi because obviously Kenny Omega was attacking him. So there's a future setup. Takeshita, sorry.
Yeah. Well, and that's what they hinted previous week when they said, "Oh, we heard that Kenny Omega's back in Canada nursing his wounds," and he said, "Oh, he's out of the country, but he's not in Canada." They hinted that he was going to Japan to get a friend, which is why I expected it to be Kota Ibushi come out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. So, anyways, it was still a fun night. Then Rampage came along on Friday, and you had Chaos versus United Empire. And specifically United Empire being Kyle Fletcher and Jeff Cobb and
really?
Will Ospreay.
See, I didn't see Rampage, so Jeff Cobb's part of United Empire?
Yeah, apparently. Mark Davis is normally the other member of United Empire, but he's out injured.
Oh, okay.
So apparently Jeff Cobb can just be in part. I love Jeff Cobb though, so I'm not complaining.
No, it just that's the first I've heard of Jeff Cobb being part of United Empire.
And then Chaos, of course, was Trent, Chuck, and Rocky Romero.
It is interesting how they change characters when they're doing stuff with Chaos versus when
they're not as goofy and silly, best friends, huggy as they are normally. But it was a fun match all in all. I love Jeff Cobb. I wish AEW could just lock him down as a permanent member.
Big some bitch, man.
But then you had Taya Valkyrie versus Trish Adora. Trish Adora is an indie wrestler who wrestled quite a few times on AEW Dark. I don't know if they're looking to sign Trish Adora, but it would be nice. Of course, Taya Valkyrie got the win. You had Jarrett Lethal and Karen Jarrett versus Briscoe Edwards and Papa Briscoe. Aubrey Edwards was, I don't know, it was a match. I don't know.
Are you suggesting she's not ready for the non-referee role?
No, I'm suggesting that we had a trios match that featured two people who are not trained wrestlers. One person who's an old man who shouldn't be in the ring, and then Papa Briscoe.
Fair enough.
I'm implying that Jeff Jarrett shouldn't be in the ring because he's an old man.
I understood what you were saying. I just was.
I'm clarifying it for anyone listening.
Okay.
I don't want Jeff Jarrett on my TV anymore. And then you had Konosuke Takeshita versus Bandito.
It's almost like you haven't said that before that you're trying to imply that with.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to make sure it's abundantly clear. I want to remove all doubt in anyone's mind. Takeshita versus Bandito, which was a really good match, although marred slightly by the fact that it's come out that Bandito apparently broke his wrist on one of the moves during this match and will likely miss some time. The fact that we didn't know he broke his wrist during the match is an important thing, but also interesting how easily Takeshita has adapted to the heel role after being the smiling babyface immigrant character, that he started off as.
It's not like it's a role he hasn't played before, though, either.
I don't know. We've never seen him as a heel.
In Japan, you did, didn't you?
No.
I'd swear he was, but okay.
Takeshita was in DDT Pro Wrestling and wasn't really well known.
I might be thinking of Ibushi.
Yeah. But so. And then the one that we really need to talk about, though, closing out the week for AEW, was the debut edition of AEW Collision. They did a lot of work to make sure that AEW Collision did not feel like Dynamite Part 2, right? It has a different ring entrance, like different stage, different setup of jumbotrons and stuff. The announce table is ringside instead of up on the entrance ramp like it is on Dynamite. Different ring ropes, different all that stuff. And I really did like that it feels like its own show. That being said, I don't like the choice for the theme song.
That's going to be your elephant in the room conversation on this?
They chose Elton John's Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting as the theme song. That's if you're not going retro with the show, if you're not trying to make this feel like something from the 80s, that song doesn't work. I feel like this needs to have a higher energy, more modern song to set the mood for the show, because the show was fire and this song fell flat to me, right? It's not the thing is I have to be nitpicky because the rest of the show was good, right? So if
there's an elephant in that room. Holy cow.
Oh, you can bring up an elephant. I didn't see one. I enjoyed the show from top to bottom.
You enjoyed Phil?
Yeah.
I thought he was disingenuous in his promo.
I think there were a lot of things that he set up in the thing that are going to play out in the future. Even though he, in the interview on ESPN, claimed that they're not going to turn the fight into a storyline on TV, the fact that he, in this promo, made digs towards the Bucks and Hangman Page,
Bucks.
yes, says that it will eventually be a program at some point. The fact that he set up what I have in this bag, I never lost, so as far as I'm concerned, it's still mine, was a kind of neat way to do the
MJF, let's have our match.
Do the illegitimate championship storyline, right? It's been done 1,000 times before in wrestling.
Hell, it's been done by him multiple times.
It's in a way, the CM Punk Cena storyline.
Yes, that's what I was referring to. Yep.
Just kind of reversed in a weird way. But the fact that he has it in a bag, he's not carrying it around, specifically saying I am the AEW champion. He says I have it in this bag, was kind of a neat way to do it.
That I would agree with.
But so
is it a snake? No.
Yeah. It also was Chicago, so the crowd was awful hot for him. He's their hero. Also, importantly, Sky Blue is from Chicago as well, so they were super in her corner when she came out for her tag match with Willow Nightingale. We'll get to. The first match of the night after the CM Punk thing was over, he was going to be in the main event, a trios match with FTR versus Samoa Joe and Bullet Club Gold.
The chops. The fucking chops.
Yeah. But the first match was Wardlow defending against Luchasaurus.
Now this is another where you actually have out loud already told me that you have a...
I don't consider it an issue with this show so much as I consider it with an issue overall with presentation. I've been trying to figure out why the Christian Cage Luchasaurus thing has been falling so flat with me. And I
think
had
it's
a
falling
thought.
flat with lots of people, though.
And I had a thought about it, and I think this might play into it, right? And the thing is, the end of this plays into this, so I'll get to it. But if you search your memory to all of the great managers, heel or face or whatever, in wrestling history, and try to remember if any of them had their own ring entrance theme that played before the person they were managing's ring entrance theme. And I cannot remember that happening on any major scale. Right, ever. Right? It may have happened once or twice with someone, but not on a major scale and not as a thing. The fact that Christian Cage gets his own music and entrance before Luchasaurus's, I think hamstrings Luchasaurus's whole thing. I think it
Do you
makes...
think that might be part of the storyline, though?
But that's why I say... I said this before the ending of this match, and I think they might be playing it as part of the storyline, because the ending of this match was Luchasaurus winning the TNT title off of Wardlow. Now, some people feel that this makes Wardlow or the TNT Championship look weak. We've discussed many a times how we don't think changing champions frequently inherently makes a championship look weak.
No.
It can, but it's not because it's changing, it's because of how they change it. A lot of people, though, are upset that Wardlow lost because he only just won it a few weeks ago again.
The second time,
yes.
Like,
he only had like one or two defenses.
Also, Luchasaurus has a built-in contender because he's one of a few two-time champion.
Mm-hmm.
So, fair enough. Kind of like Christian beating.
So
he
won it April 19th. He defended it. No, he had a match against he had two matches against nobodies, just little squash matches after winning it that were not championship matches. He had a TNT title match against Lee Moriarty that he won. He defeated Christian Cage in a ladder match at Double or Nothing. He defeated Jake Hager earlier this week, and then he lost. So that's 3 defenses before losing it. He won it back after he'd lost it to Powerhouse Hobbs. He won it back from Powerhouse Hobbs a month later. So that's where they're a little bit like it bouncing around. But Luchasaurus winning it, I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with for a lot of reasons because I think it's I think
it builds the title.
It
builds a contender.
I think it's important for AEW Collision to have something big happen on its first night. And yes, CM Punk returning is a big thing, but a title change is also a big thing. But afterwards, after Luchasaurus won, Christian was the one holding it up in the middle of the ring, almost like he was the winner of it. So that's what makes me think maybe they're turning that into a storyline.
There's a guy who managed somebody, and he came out to his music. Somebody else who did the exact same thing.
Who?
$1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
And that's the one kind of exception. However, I kind of thought about that, but I don't know.
Active wrestler managing somebody else so they can get theirs.
That's
Are they telling Macho Man and Andre, or are they telling not $1 Million Man and Andre through Luchasaurus and Ted DiBiase and Luchasaurus and Christian Cage?
I mean, maybe, but I don't know. It doesn't fit right in my mind. Anyways, that's why I just want to say that's why I thought that it was falling flat. But the way they're playing the storyline, I'm giving it some more time before I fully write it off because really quickly, just to show everyone, Rubik's Cube, fully mixed up. Right. I'll have
the
it
little
solved.
circle ones have to be the center, right?
Hmm?
The circles have to be in the center, right?
Yes. I mean,
the rounded edges.
The rounded edges have to be, yes. They can't go anywhere else. So, but it's
that's
fully
true.
mixed up. Right. I'll have it solved in almost no time. I say cockily, setting myself up for a disaster.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a disaster, but definitely some minor embarrassment.
But so I'm holding off on being fully angry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I sat there and racked my brain when you sent that, and was like, well, I don't know. I mean, theoretically, the Hart Foundation came out to Brett's music, so kind of. But it's typically active wrestlers who are partnered in a group where that does happen. But even Hogan didn't come out to NWO's music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, came out like when he came out by himself. He came out to his own music with the NWO
with
him, and more specifically with the NWO tag at the beginning, you know.
The New World Order.
But, and Eric Bischoff, when he was with the New World Order, didn't come out to,
Right, he came out to the generic music or with Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
You working really hard on that?
Sorry, I had to do a little thinking. Anyways, Buddy Matthews versus a returning Andrade El Idolo. Was a fun match. That was really fun to see. Andrade El Idolo got the victory. After doing a storyline where he was working on Buddy Matthews' knee the entire time, he did get the victory with a bridging figure 4 into a figure 8, just like his own mommy. So now we've got 2 mommies. But it was nice to see Andrade back in action.
It is interesting to see more and more of guys who don't get along with other portions.
Well,
inclusion.
It's one of those things where, like, there were lots of reports that Andrade was unhappy and was trying to get fired from AEW. And were they real? Probably. I don't know. You know. But importantly, those reports were pre-Vince taking over the company again. And it seems to me like Vince taking over the company again made a lot of those people who prior had
We're
said,
like, I want to go work for Trips. I want to go work for Trips.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
yeah, yeah, I'm ready to go back. I'm not ready to go back.
So here's a question, just because we're talking about that particular character. Andrade and Charlotte, does that work better than Becky and Seth did? Because I think because of the language barrier, it would, and I think Charlotte could play the valet role for Andrade. Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. I think the problem is anytime you've got a wrestler who's good on their own rights, being paired up with another wrestler who's good on their own rights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you almost need it to be a wrestler who's good on their own rights being paired up with someone who's just better on the mic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
i.e., Rhea Ripley and Dominic.
So,
Dominic's hard time promo just kills me still to this day. He's on a hard time like I have. Dude, you were in jail for 2 days. At most. So all in all, are we going to go back, finish going through Collision? I mean,
we're gonna finish. I wasn't sure you were done with your talking.
Oh, sorry.
So, Andrade did have a new mask, which was cool because I was ready for him to be done with the Death's Head mask that he had been wearing. But it was a good match though. All in all, I'd give it a good grade for a match. The next match was also a returning Miro, absolutely murking Tony Nese. And
I accept.
Yes, I that is the way it needed to go. I cannot imagine there being any.
Why is it that I'm excited about those two, but CM Punk, maybe it's because he made it so public. I needed the public apology after the public disgrace. Sorry, go on. Miro, Tony Nese.
Well, and like I said, CM Punk in the previous ESPN interview
said he had tried to go and apologize, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that they wouldn't, but also said that he had sat down with Tony Khan and apologized multiple times, that he knew he handled it poorly, and he wished he had done it differently. And no shit. Wished you'd done it differently. But
I mean, he gave an excuse as to why he was gone, because he tore his tricep off his bone. That didn't happen in that match, though. But
actually, it reportedly did. Whether it was all the way off the bone, like he said, or not, but reportedly that's actually the main reason he was suspended, but he also during that suspension
Attaboy, good job.
had
He has 2 Rubik's Cubes.
I do not. I have a Pyramix. I have a Pyramix downstairs. Here a fun fact: Pyramixes are the ones that are pyramid shaped, right? And universally rated as easier to solve than a regular 6-sided Rubik's cube because it's only 4 sides.
Kicks your ass, huh?
I can't figure it out. Like I occasionally stumble into solving it. But if you asked me how I did it, no clue. I did this a bunch of times. Outcast versus Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale. This was the one we were talking about. Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale is phenomenal. I love her, and I love because she wrestles like a big guy, like a Kurt Angle, as a woman. She's got a singlet and she drops the straps when she gets going, and but she smiles the entire fucking time. I don't know if I've seen a picture of Willow Nightingale not smiling.
I don't know if that's a character thing either. I think she may just actually be that happy.
She might be.
And they're just like, no, that character works if that's what you want to be.
Sky Blue is also a lot of fun. And like I said, she's from Chicago, so she gets a huge pop in Chicago. And this gave
great trunks for that match.
She had trunks. I wasn't looking at her
trunks.
I kept my eyes shoulders up the entire time. Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale got the win. So the heels kind of got their comeuppance. Reportedly, Saraya is dealing with some sort of an injury. But it's undisclosed, so we don't know why. She's not here specifically. Anyways, and then the final match of the night, the one that sold the tickets to the show, CMFTR versus Samoa Joe and Bullet Club Gold. If we thought this was ending any way other than CM Punk and FTR winning, you haven't been watching wrestling for very long. This was a fun match, though. It was fun. Everyone got good spots in. CM Punk looked good. I've said it before. I think wrestling is better when CM Punk is wrestling. He just needs to get his ego in check, and be a big man. And now I will say also to the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, be big boys now. You put on your big boy pants and make a lot of fucking money. So it's all you got to do. But it did feature a moment with CM Punk against Samoa Joe.
My chest hurts still.
Striking back to their rivalry from days of yore.
2004.
Yeah. 19 years ago.
19 years ago, yeah.
Also featured, some people have criticized the way AEW has handled Jay White. I don't think they've handled him so poorly. Because I think they'd have been criticizing if they would have had Jay White come in and immediately be like, I'm going after the world title. Right?
Yeah.
You kind of have to have him work his way up the card, have him put together a faction. I do think if we're going to be calling a team Bullet Club Gold in America on AEW, I think it needs to have more than 2 members.
I also want to say he did a great job of selling not being somebody's backup. Mm-hmm. Because when Joe tagged himself in, Jay White showed anger.
Mm-hmm.
I want CM Punk. Oh, I
Yeah.
guess I don't. So, yeah.
But um, it was a good match.
Yeah.
At one point, Samoa Joe had CM Punk in his coquina clutch, and it looked like Dax Harwood was going to come in, but then Juice Robinson jumped up on the apron and put him in a hold at the ropes there, so he couldn't get to it. And then on the other side, Cash Wheeler looked like he was getting in, but Jay White grabbed his foot from behind, or might have been the other way around. I can't remember. And it took Cash Wheeler turning around and doing a Hurricane DDT on the outside to, I think it was Jay White, and then running over to free Dax before they could break up the submission. So there was a moment where I'm like, there's no way they're going to have CM Punk go out, right? If this was WWE, they might have.
Have him go out as he didn't submit.
He didn't submit, but go out. Yeah, just go out. But if it had been WWE, WWE loves to have wrestlers lose in their hometowns. It's one of their favorite things to do.
Except for Shawn Michaels. We're in San Antonio? No, Shawn Michaels needs to win. He's 66 years old, dude.
Yeah. But in the end, Juice Robinson took a Shatter Machine and then a GTS. And then it went off the air.
And again, all I can say is I really appreciate that CM Punk says thank you to the fans, and I couldn't do it without you. Yeah, that's great. So fucking apologize to the fans.
Mm-hmm. But also note for thing, new announced team for Collision: Nigel McGuinness and Kevin Kelly.
Love that Nigel McGuinness is back in professional wrestling.
I love Nigel McGuinness. I'm happy for him. I don't know if I'm sold on the chemistry with Kevin Kelly yet. We'll find out.
You know who he has chemistry with, though? A guy who's currently not announcing. Used to be on NXT.
Mauro Ranallo.
Yes, Mauro Ranallo.
Mm-hmm.
So
that would be fun.
I would pay to have Mauro back.
He's been doing MMA a lot recently, so I don't know.
Is he back on MMA stuff?
Yeah, I don't know if he's available. I wouldn't hate it. The only reason I love Mauro. I think he brings a lot to the table, but he also has the stigma of being the voice of NXT for so long, right?
Yeah.
That if AEW on their brand new show on Saturday night put together the announce team from NXT,
I'd be okay with it.
I feel like there would be a lot of animosity. So I don't have a problem with Kevin Kelly. He's fine. He's perfectly serviceable. I just don't know if he's got the chemistry with Nigel McGuinness yet. That being said, Jim Ross also was there as a special
on the main event
for the main event, but he apparently took a bad fall earlier in the day, and did not sound very good, and sounded kind of tired. And he later, actually on Twitter, apologized and said he's going to step away to take care of himself. So, I mean, you know,
there's a certain amount of being torn that you have when it's Jim Ross, because he's not his best self anymore.
No, he's not.
That said, he's also
he is 100%,
and he's done a great job of for all eternity, speaking in a layperson perspective.
Yeah. There's no doubt he's one of the best, if not the best, to have ever done it. But no matter whether you're the best or just one of the best, there's a time to step away for everybody.
Two guys that have been in the GOAT conversation. One stepped away when he was supposed to. The other one continued. Stepped back, should I say, when he was supposed to. The other stepped away and keeps coming back. But Ric Flair is hurting himself and the industry and his legacy by continuing to have last matches.
Yes.
Chris Jericho stepped back to allow himself to have a healthier, extended career, but is preparing himself to step away altogether, I think.
Well, I mean, ultimately, when you're talking about in-ring performance, there's a point you have to, just like any athlete, right? Just like Michael Jordan had to do it at one point. You had to say, can I continue to do this at the level that I need
want
to
do it at? Correct.
That I need to do this. And like Tom Brady's been asking himself that same question for years.
Can Tom Brady still be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can he still be the best quarterback in the NFL?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, he's
probably
definitely
can't even be a top 5.
He's definitely a top 32 quarterback in the NFL.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was in Kansas City, he'd be 33rd. Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback right now.
He'd still be in the top 32 because you're forgetting that Cleveland and Houston exist. Even the backup to Patrick Mahomes had a better QBR than Davis Mills did last year.
Fair enough.
I actually don't know that stat. I made it up, but I'm betting it's the truth.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
A wide receiver core can carry you there.
Mm-hmm.
Just throw it straight up. It's fine. Our wide receivers will get you a better rating than.
So in a side note, my Texans gave me a heart attack this week because I saw an announcement that said, "Welcome JJ Watt back to Houston, Texas." And I was like,
"Was that this week?"
Wait, JJ Watt? JJ Watt, is he coming? Is he gonna? He retired from Arizona. He's probably done as a player, but is he coming back as like a defensive end coach or something? No, they just announced that he's going to be in their what they call Ring of Honor, their Houston Texans Hall of Fame. That's all it was. I'm happy to have him in there, but I want to word this with as much respect as I have. The Houston Texans have been around. They've done 20 seasons. 20 years. They have precisely 3 people in their Hall of Fame, their Ring of Honor right now. One of them is Bob McNair, the guy who founded the Houston Texans, who was put in after he passed a few years ago. So they've only, prior to J.J. Watt being announced to be in the Ring of Honor for Houston Texans, they had one player in their Hall of Fame for the Houston Texans. And I do not think a Hall of Fame that one player makes. Does that make any sense?
That's a retired number, guys. That's all it is.
Their single player in the Hall of Fame is my favorite player of all time, Andre Johnson. So now my second favorite player for the Texans of all time, J.J. Watt, is joining him. That's great. But I think if you're a team and you haven't been around long enough to induct a group of, let's say 5 for your first round of Hall of Fame, don't do it yet. You know what I mean?
They're close. I mean, if you count Bob McNair, they're close enough, though. I mean, you could put Jadeveon Clowney in there if you wanted to.
Jadeveon Clowney could legitimately. That was one of the names that I was like, there's no reason that they couldn't put him in there. His time with the Texans,
mean, it was short. That was the problem. He was short-lived in the NFL.
Yeah, his time with the Texans
was productive, though.
was very productive. Yes.
He had to be
Um,
the difference between him and say J.J. Watt is that he had to be double teamed a lot.
he did 8 total seasons in the NFL. The first 4 of them with the Texans, and then he bounced around from Seattle to Tennessee to Cleveland. During his time at the Texans, he was second team All Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, won the Ted Hendricks Award. He led the league in sacks, I want to say it was. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, he was a monster, so you could
Yes.
you could legitimately make a solid argument for him being in the Houston Texans Hall of Fame. Here, I guess here's what I think it comes down to, right? To bring this back to wrestling a bit. You remember when they announced earlier this year that Rey Mysterio was going in the WWE Hall of Fame, and oh, by the way, he also has a match on the active roster the next day. And we all said that doesn't feel right. Like, Hall of Fame is something that someone should be retired to do. Now, in fairness to the Texans, both J.J. Watt and Andre Johnson were retired when they put them into the Houston Texans Ring of Honor. Both of them had just retired, right? And for the NFL Hall of Fame, the official,
out for 5 years.
you have to be out for 5 years before they'll consider you. Because guess what? They know players like to retire and then be like, nah.
A lot of times, if you can go more than a year, so if you can go 1 year retired, sometimes that's to not have a trade clause on your contract.
That's enough to get you a free agency.
Yes.
And then you can just go to some other team.
Pick your team. So, the big piece to this particular puzzle is that when you talk wrestling, I have to remind you that the first year of WWE's Hall of Fame had one singular inductee, and it was Andre. The problem is not that they have a Hall of Fame. The problem is that they are now developing more than 1 year of it. So it was Andre Johnson and saying, hey, this is our Ring of Honor. We want to honor Andre Johnson. And now they're like, well, we haven't included anybody else. So J.J. Watt.
Yeah. Well, and again, here's...
I mean, David Carr belongs there, right?
In an alternate universe, maybe. One where they gave him a actual offensive line.
Yeah, there are 0 offensive linemen from the Houston Texans that belong in any Hall of Fame ever.
Yeah.
The guy that got beat up by Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt. That guy deserves his practice squad Hall of Fame.
But like, I guess here's what it comes down to. Kind of like you mentioned. With J.J. Watt, again, second favorite player of all time for the Houston Texans. Very likely NFL Hall of Famer eventually. The only thing that could stand in his way, and doesn't necessarily, but could, is the fact that he never went to a Super Bowl, right? It's the same thing that could stand in the way of Andre Johnson being in the NFL Hall of Fame. That no matter how good his stats were, some people, when voting for NFL Hall of Fame, use rings or at the very least Super Bowl appearances as a metric, right? I am frequent to point out that if you use NFL rings as a metric for whether someone belongs in the NFL Hall of Fame, then Dan Marino is suddenly a suspected.
Dan Marino should not be in, and Joe Flacco should.
Yeah, you know, because
that doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
Even better, Jim Kelly should not be in, who went 4 times,
Mm-hmm.
and Joe Flat and Colin Kaepernick should, who went and won. No, he didn't win one. Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
But
Joe Flacco.
Yeah, Joe Flacco. It's another great example. Who's the guy that? Shit, yeah, there's all sorts of them. Dan Fouts, who is in.
Yeah, and that's the deal. It's like in the end, well, yes, Super Bowl
Warren Moon
appearances
should not be in.
Yeah,
And Joe Flacco should be in.
Super Bowl appearances definitely are something to consider. If someone makes it to the Super Bowl multiple times, then that can be a sign they belong in the NFL Hall of Fame. It's not the only thing to consider. But what I was about to say with JJ Watt is he has an NFL Hall of Fame worthy career behind him right now.
Correct.
And in 5 years would be eligible. But also, if you were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you thought you had all of the pieces in place right now to make another run at the Super Bowl, but you just needed a top-level
edge rusher.
And you saw, hey, J.J. Watt's been out of the league for a year, retired. Let's shoot him an offer. And you were J.J. Watt, you'd maybe consider it. And that's why you have the time wait required before you go into a Hall of Fame.
Correct.
Is to make sure you don't go into the Hall of Fame and then be like, hey,
have a Hall of Fame performance on the field.
Yeah.
Or not so Hall
or even use it as a negotiation tactic. Don't you want a Hall of Fame edge rusher on your team? Yeah, I want a Hall of Fame edge rusher. Well, you better give me a shot.
One that's available?
So, anyways, back to pro wrestling, because that's what it was. Best wishes out to Jim Ross as he recovers from his fall. What got us into this was I felt this way for a while, that maybe this is part of the signs to Jim Ross that maybe it's time for him, one of the, if not the all-time great pro wrestling announcers, maybe this is a time for him to step back even more. I thought this a year ago. I thought the best use in AEW for him would be to turn him into kind of that thing that Mean Gene did towards the end of his career, where he wasn't a regular backstage interviewer, but he did sit-down interviews with people, which they've done a few times with Jim Ross in AEW, where it's just like Jim Ross sitting in a comfy chair across from Chris Jericho. And Chris, you got this big match with Darby Allin and Sting coming up. What do you have to say about it? And leave the announcing, the day-to-day out in the spotlight announcing to the younger people. Tony Schiavone's the voice of my childhood, I always call him, because I was a WCW fan. For me, Tony Schiavone's the voice I like to hear the most. But I also would be fine with him transitioning to more, and I think they've kind of done this with him.
Yeah.
Transitioning to more of a backstage announcement. I think what if I were AEW, I would turn Tony Schiavone into the voice for Tony Khan. Get Tony Khan's cracked out face.
Almost authority figure.
Yes. Like, you can still have Tony Khan be the official authority figure, but all of his edicts come through Tony Schiavone. When Tony Khan has an announcement, it's Tony Schiavone who says it. when Tony Khan decides to suspend somebody, it's Tony Schiavone who announces it or whatever. I think that'd be the way to have Tony Schiavone do it, and have him step back and let the younger, because Excalibur does phenomenal on
Yep.
the
And Taz has been a great color commentator for
Taz
years.
does good. As long as, since they've transitioned to Taz no longer being the leader of a faction,
Correct.
I've said before, I don't like regular commentators being part of an actual on-screen faction. Right?
Taz even gives good commentary though with Hook.
Yeah,
Like that's his kid.
That's his kid, but he's still not part of a faction with him anymore.
Correct.
You know, I'm fine with like Chris Jericho joining commentary every once in a while, because that's a time for him to be a heel and
Jericho and Punk can both do commentary, and they do great color, and they can do it alongside, you know, Nigel McGuinness and.
But again, my point is, it has to be on occasion, not as a regular, right?
Or if they do, then that's all they do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think if you're going to be an announcer regularly, then you need to be a full-time announcer.
Now,
and Taz does well.
The benefit they have with Collision and oh my gosh, Dynamite / Rampage is that like a Jericho could be Collision, or it could be Dynamite Rampage, not actually perform on Collision, and could be a Collision commentator.
They could potentially do that,
Not
as long as they kept Jericho Appreciation Society also
off
on
of Collision,
Dynamite and Rampage only.
Yeah, can't be part of Collision.
And so, but like, you know, as I said, Excalibur is great. Taz does good. They've been keeping Renee Paquette as just a backstage interviewer.
She may be ready for that promotion.
And I really enjoyed her on commentary in WWE. I know some people didn't, but I liked her when she was
commentator. Yeah,
commentator there.
She wasn't the play-by-play though.
Yep. So I think
she was the face color commentator.
I think she could have a place on there. I don't mind Big Show on the mic. So when he's out there on commentary, he's fine.
Mark Henry's a backstage. Mark Henry's a backstager.
Yeah, Mark Henry backstage. I said this last week. I'm gonna say it again. I missed the Mark Henry interviews the main event for Rampage segment.
Instead of, that's time for the main event.
Because now all he does is you come out and say, it's time for the main event, and collect his check and go home. Which is good for him, right? If I could find that job, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But I miss, because I always, like, he kind of had this like sparkle in his eye, like he was stirring the pot between these two people, you know, as he's interviewing them.
It was fun. It was
and
fun,
then he'd be like, well, looks like the time for talking is done. It's time for the main event. I enjoyed that, so I wish they would bring that back. Anyways, Collision was fun. I enjoyed the show. I liked how they made it feel like a different show. Like I said earlier, I did not want it to feel like Dynamite Part 2. Because unfortunately, as much as I like Rampage, because it's filmed after Dynamite most of the time, has the same set as Dynamite, the same ring as Dynamite, the same announced setup as Dynamite. They have different announcers, but it's the same sort of a thing. To make it feel different, I think is an important thing. And I think they did a really good job with it. It'll be interesting to see as the time goes on how hard this brand split, for lack of a better term, is. Like Andrade and Miro and CM Punk, are they going to be basically only on Collision, or are we going to see them on Dynamite eventually? I think CM Punk's probably going to be mostly Collision, but Miro and Andrade, I mean, Buddy Matthews wrestled on Dynamite recently, Sky Blue wrestled on Dynamite this week. Tony Storm wrestled on Dynamite this week. You know,
is this brand split just CM Punk / Andrade until we want him somewhere else / Miro until he's ready to play nice somewhere else? Related.
That's it. Like, how hard is this brand split going to be? Or is it going to be just like there is no real brand split except for CM Punk? You know, like CM Punk's the only one that we're keeping off of Dynamite. The rest of them will come and go on Dynamite occasionally.
Yeah.
The only thing that I wish they would do is if you're going to keep having Samoa Joe on AEW, then maybe you give someone from Ring of Honor that their championship he's got. I'm ready for Ring of Honor to not be on my AEW TV. Nothing against Ring of Honor. I think Ring of Honor needs to be its own thing. And there needs to be kind of, there can be a blurry line between Collision and Dynamite. There should be a hard line between AEW and Ring of Honor, in my opinion.
I think Collision should have been an ROH show anyways, but it's not who the contract's with, so.
It is not. And for some reason, we're not privy to the exact reasons, Warner Media has no interest in Ring of Honor, only interest in AEW. At least as far as we've heard. So.
Yep.
But on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up for this. It was a fun week in professional wrestling, and it's just going to get more fun because we got all sorts of stuff happening. Of course, we've got Money in the Bank coming up. We've got
All In, All Out.
All In, All Out, but Forbidden Door coming up here. In the very, very close. Because we've got just looking at the dates here. The Forbidden Door this coming weekend. Do we have another week before Money in the Bank?
I thought it was this weekend, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have those backwards. I don't know. There's so much wrestling in a week.
Yeah, okay. Money in the Bank is the 2nd of July. So we've got Forbidden Door this coming weekend, Money in the Bank the following weekend.
Okay. So this show won't exist for 3 days. 3 weeks. It'll be reviews the next 2 weeks.
Yep. Next 2 weeks. But make sure to come back on Tuesday for our game night. Hopefully we'll have JLB here for it because it's way more fun when we have 3 people on screen.
On games.
On the games. But we go live every Sunday night and Tuesday night around 10:30 or when we stop talking about something else and finally press go live.
True.
So
True
make
story.
sure to join us then. Make sure to follow on Twitch. Subscribe if you would like. Follow us on YouTube as well. We post the replays there a couple days later. You can follow us on all the social media. You can follow me at, bring my hand up, Raw and Order WBU, just like you see there. You can follow DA Fabe at
DA Vincent Kayfabe right there on Twitter.
I just found out I have a cat in my room with me.
Oh.
I did not know this kitty was in the room here.
Congratulations.
When I shut the door. But make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can support us by buying merch at our merch stores. Links are in the doobly-doos for that. But on that note, we're going to go ahead and close the book on the Wrestling Booking Unit. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you soon.